Announcer bot is active. San Marcom from Zimbabwe is P14 on standards. Best lap is a 150.884. David Kelsall is P3. Best lap is a 345.451. Ian Morton is P12 on standards. Brian Patterson is P9 on standards. David Kelsall is P6. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P9 with 50 kilos on standards. David Kelsall is P6. Ryan Skywalker is P9. Mark Scott from Norway is P13 on standards. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P9. Ian Morton is P12. Ryan Skywalker is P7. Best lap is a 155.565. Emmanuel Ruscia user from Italy is P6 on standards. Best lap is a 152.279. Ryan Skywalker is P8. Rene Robertson is P2 on standards. Best lap is a 147.565. San Marcom is P3 on standards. Best lap is a 148.550. Attila Kseniai from Hungary is P1 on standards. Best lap is a 147.415. Hein van Niekerk is P10 on standards. Best lap is a 214.583. Ryan Skywalker is P9 on standards. David Kelsall is P6. Best lap is a 150.335. Ryan Skywalker is P5. Best lap is a 150.221. Hein van Niekerk is P8. Best lap is a 150.533. Attila Ksenia is P1. Ian Morton is P12. Attila Ksenia from Hungary is P1. Louis van Jaarsveld from South Africa is P10 on standards. Best lap is a 153.961. David Kelsall is P6. Guian Chen from Hong Kong is P13 on standards. Jovan Oosthuizen is P12 on standards. Best lap is a 754.625. San Markham is P3. Louis van Jaarsveld is P11. Guian Chen is P13. Emmanuel Russia is P8. Best lap is a 150.346. Guian Chen is P13. Hein van Niekerk is P9. Guian Chen is P14. Hein van Niekerk is P9 on standards. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5 on standards. Best lap is a 149.596. David Kelsall is P7. Kian Chen is P14. Glenn Field from United Kingdom is P17 on standards. Eric Bohm from Germany is P4. Best lap is a 1:48.607. Kian Chen is P16. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P8. Ian Morton is P12. Best lap is a 3:55.477. Kian Chen is P15. Rene Robertson is P3. Ryan Skywalker is P6 with 50 kilos. Attila Ksenia is P1. Best lap is a 1:47.377. Glenn Field is P15. David Kelsall is P7. Eric Bohm is P4. John Astrup from New Zealand is P16 on standards. Ryan Skywalker is P6. Eric Bohm is P4. Best lap is a 1:48.193. Kian Chen is P18. David Forsyth is P5. Best lap is a 1:49.335. Richard Ogden is P16 on standards. San Marcom is P2 on standards. Best lap is a 1:47.504. Jovan Oosthuizen from South Africa is P7. Best lap is a 1:49.830. Eric Bohm is P5. Ryan Skywalker is P9. Bruce Hardwick is P19 on standards. John Astrup is P15. Best lap is a 1:53.151. Ryan Skywalker is P9. Rene Robertson is P3 on standards. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8. Rene Robertson is P3. Kian Chen is P18. 95 minutes remaining in the session. Attila Ksenia is P1. Best lap is a 1:47.194. Eric Bohm is P5. Rene Robertson is P3 on standards. Jovan Ustiosen is P8. Eric Bohm is P5. Jovan Ustiosen is P8. Louis van Jaarsveld is P13 on standards. Best lap is a 1:51.290. Jovan Ustiosen is P8. Louis van Jaarsveld from South Africa is P13. Kian Chen is P14. Best lap is a 1:51.380. Attila Ksenia is P1 on standards. Jovan Ustiosen is P8. "90 minutes remaining in the session. Ryan Skywalker is P9. Hein van Niekerk is P1. Ryan Skywalker is P1. Bruce Hardwick is P15. Glenn Field is P6. Ryan Skywalker is P11. Announcer bot is active. Glenfield is P2 on standards. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P10 on standards. John Astrup from New Zealand is P20 on standards. The qualification session is at historic circuit of Silverstone in Silverstone, Great Britain. Glenfield is P19 on standards. The qualifying session is now underway. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P13 on standards. Rene Robertson is P1 on standards. David Kelsall is P3. Rene Robertson is P1. Jovan Oosthuizen is P2 on standards. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P6 on standards. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5 on standards. Ian Morton is P9 on standards. Eric Bohm from Germany is P12. Richard Ogden is P10 on standards. Kian Chen is P3 on standards. Richard Ogden is P10. Ian Morton is P7. David Kelsall is P2. Kian Chen is P3. Ian Morton is P18. John Astrup from New Zealand is P16 on standards. 10 minutes remaining in the session. David Forsyth is P3 up 0.02. Glenfield is P11. John Astrup is P7 up 0.02. Glenfield is P12. Louis van Jaarsveld is P7 on standards. Best lap is a 151.134. 3.222 behind the leader. Glenfield is P12. Hein van Niekerk is P14 on standards. Richard Ogden is P9 up 0.01. San Markham from Zimbabwe is P15 on standards. Hein van Niekerk is P14 up 0.00. San Markham is P2. Best lap is a 147.983. 0.071 behind the leader. Attila Ksenia is P16 on standards. Attila Ksenia is provisional pole with a 146.981. Bruce Hardwick is P17 on standards. Bruce Hardwick improved his P17 with a 154.906. 346.153 behind the leader. Ian Morton is P18. Ryan Skywalker is P5. Best lap is a 1:49.642. 2.661 behind the leader. Bruce Hardwick is P17. Best lap is a 5:33.134. 3:46.153 behind the leader. Mark Scott from Norway is P19 on standards. Five minutes remaining in the session. Eric Bohm is P16. Ryan Skywalker is P5 on standards. The race session is at historic circuit of Silverstone in Silverstone, Great Britain. Attila Ksenia is P2 on standards. Rene Robertson is P3 on standards. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P4 on standards. David Kelsall is P5. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P6 on standards. David Forsyth from Ireland is P7 on standards. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8 on standards. Hein van Niekerk is P9 on standards. Glenn Field is P10 on standards. Emmanuel Rusher is P11 on standards. Kian Chen is P12 on standards. Louis van Jaarsveld is P13 on standards. Brian Patterson is P14 on standards. Richard Ogden is P15 on standards. John Astrup from New Zealand is P16 on standards. 30 minutes remaining in the session race start. Eric Bohm from Germany is P1. Sam Markham is P3. Rene Robertson entering the pits is P18. Brian Patterson is P3. The race session is at historic circuit of Silverstone in Silverstone, Great Britain. Brian Patterson is P13 on standards. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P1 on standards. Attila Ksenia is P2 on standards. Rene Robertson is P3 on standards. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P4 on standards. David Kelsall is P5. David Forsyth from Ireland is P6 on standards. Kian Chen is P7 on standards. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8 on standards. Hein van Niekerk is P9 on standards. Glenn Field is P10 on standards. Emmanuel Rusher is P11 on standards. Louis van Jaarsveld is P12 on standards. Brian Patterson is P13. Richard Ogden is P14 on standards. John Astrup from New Zealand is P15 on standards. 30 minutes remaining in the session race start. Sam Markham is P2. John Astrup is P13. Kian Chen entering the pits is P18. Sam Markham is P2. Eric Bohm from Germany is P8. Rene Robertson is P2. Ryan Skywalker is P5. San Marco is P3. Richard Ogden is P14. San Marco is P3. Eric Bohm is P5. San Marco is P3. David Forsyth is P8, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marco is P3 on standards, battling Rene Robertson. Louis van Jaarsveld is P15 on standards, 0.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Glenn Field is P10 battling John Astrup. David Forsyth is P6, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Kelsall is P13 battling Bruce Hardwick. San Marco is P3 battling Eric Bohm. Louis van Jaarsveld is P14, 0.2 seconds behind Bruce Hardwick. Eric Bohm from Germany is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P6, 0.3 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Hein van Niekerk is P17 on standards, 0.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. David Kelsall entering the pits after 3 laps is P14. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.4 seconds behind San Marco. Rene Robertson is P6, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 1:55.029. 6.938 of the fastest lap. Hein van Niekerk is P15, 0.2 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Eric Bohm is P3 battling San Marco. Kian Chen is P18. Best lap is a 1:52.659. 4.568 of the fastest lap. 25 minutes remaining in the session. San Marco is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Hein van Niekerk is P14, 0.4 seconds behind Bruce Hardwick. Eric Bohm is P3 battling San Marco. David Forsyth on lap 3 is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. John Astrup from New Zealand is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Emmanuel Rocheuser. Bruce Hardwick is P14 on standards, 0.2 seconds behind Hein van Nicker. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. John Astrup is P10, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Rocheuser. Kian Chen entering the pits after 4 laps on standards is P18. David Forsyth is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Emmanuel Rocheuser is P10 on standards, 0.1 seconds behind John Astrup. David Forsyth is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 1:51.072. 3.179 of the fastest lap. Richard Ogden is P15, 0.4 seconds behind Bruce Hardwick. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Richard Ogden is P16, 0.2 seconds behind David Kelsall. Glenfield entering the pits after 5 laps on standards is P8. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P7 on standards, 0.2 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Eric Bohm from Germany is P3, 0.1 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marco is P3 battling Eric Bohm. Brian Patterson is P7, 0.1 seconds behind David Forsyth. San Marco is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Rene Robertson is P5, 0.1 seconds behind Jovan Oosthuizen. San Marco from Zimbabwe is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5, 0.2 seconds behind Rene Robertson. San Marco is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marco is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 6 laps on standards is P15. 20 minutes remaining in the session. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Eric Bohm is P2, 0.6 seconds ahead of San Marco. Brian Patterson is P7, 0.2 seconds behind David Forsyth. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 1.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Forsyth on lap 6 is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Hein van Niekerk is P13, 0.1 seconds behind David Kelsall. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 7 laps is P3. David Forsyth is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 1:50.215. 2.614 of the fastest lap. Brian Patterson is P6, 0.8 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Hein van Niekerk is P13, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Rene Robertson is P3, 2.3 seconds ahead of Jovan Ustjorsen. Ian Morton is P19 on standards. Best lap is a 2:23.747. 36.146 of the fastest lap. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 7 laps on standards is P16. David Forsyth is P7, 0.2 seconds behind Brian Patterson. David Kelsall is P12, 0.7 seconds ahead of Hein van Niekerk. John Astrup is P8, 0.5 seconds behind David Forsyth. David Kelsall is P12, 0.7 seconds ahead of Hein van Niekerk. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P3. Rene Robertson is P3, 2.3 seconds ahead of Jovan Ustjorsen. Jovan Ustjorsen entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P4. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 2.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Glenn Field is P14. Bruce Hardwick is P18. Best lap is a 1:53.733. 6.132 of the fastest lap. David Forsyth is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson is P7, 0.7 seconds behind John Astrup. Best lap is a 1:48.293. 0.692 of the fastest lap. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson is P7, 0.3 seconds behind John Astrup. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Mark Scott from Norway is P8 on standards, 0.3 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. Rene Robertson is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. San Marco entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P2. David Forsyth is P5 on standards, 0.2 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Rene Robertson is P5 battling David Forsyth. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Emmanuel Richard entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P9. Mark Scott is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Rene Robertson is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Emmanuel Richard is P14. Best lap is a 1:50.968. 3.367 of the fastest lap. Brian Patterson is P5, 0.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Kelsall is P9, 0.3 seconds behind John Astrup. Brian Patterson is P5 on standards, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Kelsall is P9, 0.1 seconds behind John Astrup. Attila Kseniai entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P1. Attila Kseniai is P1. Ian Morton is P19. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P5. Ryan Skywalker entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P6. David Kelsall is P8, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. John Astrup entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P9. Ian Morton entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P19. John Astrup is P8. Best lap is a 1:50.545. 2.944 of the fastest lap. David Forsyth entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P13. Mark Scott from Norway is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Rene Robertson is P4. David Forsyth is P14, 2.9 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Louis van Jaarsveld entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P16. Jovan Oosthuizen is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Mark Scott. Louis van Jaarsveld is P16 on standards. Mark Scott is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Jovan Oosthuizen. Bruce Hardwick is P18 on standards. Hein van Niekerk is P17. Mark Scott entering the pits after 11 laps on standards is P7. David Kelsall is P5, 2.2 seconds ahead of Jovan Oosthuizen. Bruce Hardwick is P18. John Astrup is P9, 0.5 seconds behind Mark Scott. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 4 laps on standards is P18. Jovan Oosthuizen on lap 11 is P6, 2.4 seconds behind David Kelsall. Bruce Hardwick is P18. 10 minutes remaining in the session. David Kelsall entering the pits after 9 laps is P5. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5. Best lap is a 1:49.117. 1.785 of the fastest lap. John Astrup on lap 11 is P7, 1.5 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Jovan Ustyosen on lap 12 is P5. Ryan Skywalker is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Mark Scott. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 11 is P15. Bruce Hardwick is P18. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 12 is P15. Emmanuel Richauser is P10, 0.1 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Brian Patterson is P11, 0.2 seconds behind Mark Scott. Best lap is a 1:50.328. 2.996 off the fastest lap. Louis van Jaarsveld is P15. John Astrup is P7, 0.7 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. Emmanuel Richauser on lap 13 is P9, 1.0 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. John Astrup is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Bruce Hardwick on lap 12 is P17. Brian Patterson is P10 on standards, 0.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Richauser. Louis van Jaarsveld is P15. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Emmanuel Richauser is P9, 0.5 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. David Forsyth is P13. Brian Patterson is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Emmanuel Richauser. John Astrup is P8, 2.0 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Emmanuel Richauser is P10, 0.1 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5. Emmanuel Richauser is P10, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5. Gian Chen is P14. Emmanuel Richauser is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5. Emmanuel Richauser is P10 on standards, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5. Emmanuel Richauser on lap 15 is P10, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5, 4.8 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Bruce Hardwick on lap 12 is P17. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5, 2.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 15 is P15. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5, 1.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P17. Rene Robertson is P4, 0.1 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Bruce Hardwick is P17. Rene Robertson is P5 on standards, 2.5 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Richard Ogden is P12, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. Rene Robertson is P5, 3.9 seconds behind Jovan Ustjosen. Louis van Jaarsveld is P16 on standards. Emmanuel Russia is P10, 0.2 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. Richard Ogden is P11, 3.2 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Ryan Skywalker is P7 on standards, 4.1 seconds ahead of John Astrup. John Astrup is P8 on standards, 4.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Attila Ksenia is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Attila Ksenia finished P1. David Forsyth finished P13. Mark Scott finished P12. Richard Ogden finished P11. Eric Bohm finished P2. Sam Markham finished P3. Kian Chen finished P14. Jovan Ustjosen finished P4. Hein van Niekerk finished P15. Glenn Field finished P6. Rene Robertson finished P5. Ryan Skywalker finished P7. John Astrup finished P8. Emmanuel Russia finished P10. Brian Patterson finished P9. Louis van Jaarsveld finished P16. Bruce Hardwick finished P17. Eric Bohm finished P2. Emmanuel Russia finished P10. Eric Bohm finished P2. Jovan Ustjosen finished P4. Eric Bohm finished P2. The race session is at historic circuit of Silverstone in Silverstone, Great Britain. Jovan Ustyosen is P5 on standards. Hein van Niekerk is P7 on standards. Glenfield is P8 on standards. Emmanuel Rusche is P10 on standards. Gian Chen is P11 on standards. Louis van Jaarsveld is P12 on standards. Brian Patterson is P13 on standards. Richard Ogden is P14 on standards. John Astrup from New Zealand is P15 on standards. Eric Bohm from Germany is P16. Bruce Hardwick is P17 on standards. Ian Morton is P18 on standards. Mark Scott from Norway is P19 on standards. Attila Ksenia is P1 on standards. Ian Morton entering the pits is P18. 30 minutes remaining in the session. ReneRmotorsport-Assetto is P2 on standards. Race start. Attila Ksenia is P3. San Marco from Zimbabwe is P2 on standards. Jovan Ustyosen is P8. San Marco is P2. Jovan Ustyosen is P8. Attila Ksenia is P2. San Marco is P2. David Kelsall is P5. ReneRmotorsport-Assetto is P2. Brian Patterson is P12. Attila Ksenia is P2. David Kelsall on lap 2 is P5, 0.2 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. San Marco is P2, 0.3 seconds ahead of Attila Ksenia. Attila Ksenia is P2, 0.2 seconds ahead of San Marco. Jovan Ustyosen is P8, 0.2 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Attila Ksenia is P2, 0.3 seconds behind ReneRmotorsport-Assetto. Hein van Niekerk is P4, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. Robertson is P2, 0.4 seconds behind Attila Kseniai. David Kelsall is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Hein van Nicken. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8, 0.1 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. David Kelsall is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Hein van Nicken. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8, 0.2 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P17, 0.2 seconds behind John Astrup. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8, 0.1 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. Glenfield is P9 on standards battling Ryan Skywalker. Kian Chen is P14, 1.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Glenfield on lap 3 is P9, 0.4 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P8 on standards, 0.3 seconds ahead of Glenfield. Best lap is a 150.719. 2.707 of the fastest lap. 25 minutes remaining in the session. Jovan Oosthuizen is P7, 0.5 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. Glenfield is P9, 0.1 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Kian Chen is P14, 0.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Glenfield is P9, 0.1 seconds ahead of Eric Byrne. Eric Byrne is P9, 0.1 seconds ahead of Glenfield. Kian Chen on lap 4 is P14, 0.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. John Astrup entering the pits after 4 laps on standards is P18. Glenfield is P10, 0.3 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. David Kelsall is P5, 0.5 seconds behind Hein van Nicken. Glenfield is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Eric Byrne is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Jovan Oosthuizen. Ryan Skywalker is P10 on standards, 0.3 seconds behind Glenfield. Jovan Oosthuizen is P8 on standards, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Byrne. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P17. Glenfield is P9, 0.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Glenfield entering the pits after 5 laps on standards is P10. Sam Markham is P3, 0.8 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Kian Chen entering the pits after 5 laps on standards is P13. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 5 laps on standards is P14. Kian Chen is P12. San Marcom is P3. Best lap is a 1:48.126. 0.664 of the fastest lap. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 5 laps on standards is P15. Richard Ogden is P13 on standards. David Kelsall is P4. Bruce Hardwick is P17, 2.6 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Best lap is a 1:53.848. 6.386 of the fastest lap. Eric Bohm is P7, 0.1 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. Rene Robertson on lap 5 is P2, 0.6 seconds ahead of San Marco. Guillaume Chen is P14 on standards, 0.5 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Eric Bohm is P6, 0.4 seconds behind David Forsyth. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5 on standards. San Marcom from Zimbabwe is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Eric Bohm is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. San Marcom is P3 on standards, 0.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Hein van Niekerk on lap 6 is P7, 0.2 seconds behind David Forsyth. 20 minutes remaining in the session. San Marcom is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits is P18. Emmanuel Richard is P16, 4.9 seconds behind Louis van Jaarsveld. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.1 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth from Ireland is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. Jovan Oosthuizen is P7, 0.2 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. David Kelsall is P4, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Jovan Oosthuizen is P7, 0.8 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Guillaume Chen entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P16. Guillaume Chen is P16. Best lap is a 1:51.029. 4.172 of the fastest lap. Glenn Field is P12, 2.0 seconds ahead of Richard Ogden. David Kelsall on lap 7 is P4, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Louis van Jaarsveld entering the pits after 7 laps on standards is P14. Rene Robertson is P4, 0.9 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm is P4, 3.8 seconds ahead of Hein van Niekerk. Jovan Oosthuizen is P6, 0.1 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. David Kelsall is P3, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Mark Scott entering the pits after 7 laps on standards is P11. Jovan Oosthuizen is P6, 0.1 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. David Kelsall is P3, 0.4 seconds behind San Marco. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 8 laps is P4. Eric Bohm is P8, 2.8 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. David Kelsall is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Sam Markham. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P10. Jovan Ustjorzen is P4, 1.2 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Rene Robertson on lap 8 is P12. Hein van Niekerk is P6, 0.5 seconds behind David Forsyth. Rene Robertson is P13, 0.1 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. Best lap is a 1:48.018. 1.161 of the fastest lap. Hein van Niekerk is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Emmanuel Richard is P13, 0.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Hein van Niekerk is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Best lap is a 1:48.035. 1.178 of the fastest lap. Jovan Ustjorzen entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P4. David Forsyth entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P7. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5, 0.4 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Glenfield is P10. Emmanuel Richard is P13, 0.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Kelsall is P3, 0.6 seconds behind Sam Markham. Best lap is a 1:47.606. 0.749 of the fastest lap. Emmanuel Richard entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P13. Emmanuel Richard is P13, 2.6 seconds ahead of John Astrup. John Astrup entering the pits after 6 laps on standards is P14. Glenfield is P8 on standards, 1.3 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. John Astrup is P14. Best lap is a 1:50.402. 3.545 of the fastest lap. David Kelsall is P3, 0.8 seconds behind Sam Markham. Attila Kseni is P1. Attila Kseni entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P1. Glenfield is P8, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Attila Kseni is P3, 1.2 seconds behind David Kelsall. Best lap is a 1:46.857. Hein van Niekerk entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P4. Hein van Niekerk is P4, 2.3 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. Ryan Skywalker entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P5. Glenfield is P8. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P7. Brian Patterson is P7. Glenfield is P8 on standards, 0.6 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Ryan Skywalker on lap 10 is P9. David Forsyth from Ireland is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Ryan Skywalker is P9, 0.5 seconds behind Richard Ogden. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Jovan Ustiosen is P6, 0.4 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. San Markham is P1, 1.5 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. San Markham entering the pits after 11 laps on standards is P1. David Kelsall entering the pits after 11 laps is P2. Glenfield is P5. David Kelsall is P2, 2.6 seconds behind Attila Kseniai. Glenfield is P5, 1.2 seconds ahead of Jovan Ustiosen. David Kelsall is P3, 3.6 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. David Forsyth is P7 on standards, 0.2 seconds behind Jovan Ustiosen. Jovan Ustiosen is P6, 0.8 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Rene Robertson is P10, 0.8 seconds behind Richard Ogden. David Forsyth is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Jovan Ustiosen. Rene Robertson is P10, 0.4 seconds behind Richard Ogden. David Forsyth from Ireland is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Jovan Ustiosen. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Hein van Niekerk entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P12. Jovan Ustiosen is P6, 0.5 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. David Forsyth from Ireland is P7, 0.3 seconds ahead of Glenfield. Glenfield on lap 12 is P7. Glenfield entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P7. San Markham is P2, 3.5 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. David Kelsall is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Jovan Ustiosen is P5, 0.6 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Best lap is a 1:49.777. 2.920 of the fastest lap. Glenfield is P13. Jovan Ustiosen is P5, 0.9 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Brian Patterson is P10, 0.6 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 0.9 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Brian Patterson is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Richard Ogden is P10, 1.0 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Louis van Jaarsveld is P12 on standards. David Forsyth is P6 on standards, 1.3 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorsen. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Rene Robertson is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 1.1 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Rene Robertson on lap 14 is P8 battling Ryan Skywalker. David Forsyth is P6, 0.2 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorsen. Louis van Jaarsveld entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P12. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. John Astrup from New Zealand is P11, 0.5 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. John Astrup is P11 on standards, 0.2 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 0.8 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. John Astrup is P10 on standards, 0.9 seconds ahead of Richard Ogden. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Louis van Jaarsveld is P13. Louis van Jaarsveld entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P13. Glenfield is P12. Jovan Ustjorsen on lap 17 is P5, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Eric Bohm is P3, 1.2 seconds behind San Markholm. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5, 1.4 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Richard Ogden is P11. Best lap is a 151.356. 4.499 of the fastest lap. Eric Bohm is P3, 1.0 seconds behind San Markholm. Attila Ksenia is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Attila Ksenia finished P1. Richard Ogden finished P11. San Markholm from Zimbabwe is P2. San Markholm finished P2. Eric Bohm finished P3. David Kelsall finished P4. Glenfield finished P12. Jovan Ustjorsen is P5. Jovan Ustjorsen finished P5. David Forsyth finished P6. Rene Robertson finished P7. Ryan Skywalker finished P8. Brian Patterson finished P9. John Astrup finished P10. Ryan Skywalker finished P8. Glenfield finished P12. Ryan Skywalker finished P8. Attila Kseni finished P1. The race session is at historic circuit of Silverstone in Silverstone, Great Britain. David Kelsall is P4. Eric Bohm from Germany is P9. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P11 on standards. Attila Kseni is P12 on standards. Louis van Jaarsveld is P13 on standards. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P14 on standards. Mark Scott from Norway is P15 on standards. Glenn Field is P1 on standards. Richard Ogden is P2 on standards. John Astrup from New Zealand is P3 on standards. Brian Patterson is P4 on standards. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa is P5 on standards. Rene Robertson is P6 on standards. David Forsyth from Ireland is P7 on standards. 30 minutes remaining in the session. Jochen Oosthuizen is P8 on standards. Race start. Rene Robertson is P2. David Kelsall is P5. John Astrup is P2. David Kelsall is P5. Attila Xenia is P7. Ryan Skywalker is P3. Sam Markham is P7. Jochen Oosthuizen is P4. Ryan Skywalker is P3. Eric Bone is P7. John Astrup is P3. Richard Ogden is P10. Eric Bone entering the pits after 2 laps is P7. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P8, 0.3 seconds behind Mark Scott. Attila Xenia is P14, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 2 is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Richard Ogden. David Kelsall is P12 battling Brian Patterson. Brian Patterson is P14, 0.1 seconds behind Eric Bone. Best lap is a 2:09.383. 14.197 of the fastest lap. Sam Markham is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. John Astrup is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Jochen Oosthuizen. Louis van Jaarsveld is P11, 0.2 seconds behind David Kelsall. Attila Ksenia is P11 battling David Kelsall. San Marcom is P5, 0.5 seconds behind John Astrow. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P15. David Kelsall on lap 3 is P11, 0.4 seconds behind Attila Ksenia. Emmanuel Richard-User is P8 on standards, 1.0 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. "25 minutes remaining in the session. David Kelsall is P11, 0.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard-User. David Forsyth is P6 on standards, 0.8 seconds behind John Astrow. Eric Bohm from Germany is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Mark Scott. David Forsyth is P6, 0.5 seconds behind John Astrow. Mark Scott is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Attila Ksenia. Rene Robertson is P1, 3.2 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. Glenfield is P14, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. David Forsyth is P6, 0.8 seconds behind John Astrow. Best lap is a 1:49.944. 1.503 of the fastest lap. Glenfield is P14 on standards battling Brian Patterson. David Kelsall is P10, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. Best lap is a 1:49.393. 1.521 of the fastest lap. Brian Patterson is P14, 0.4 seconds behind Glenfield. Mark Scott is P10, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P15. David Forsyth from Ireland is P6, 0.8 seconds behind John Astrow. Richard Ogden is P15. San Marcom is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Jovan Ustioza. Brian Patterson is P14, 0.2 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marcom from Zimbabwe is P4, 0.1 seconds behind Jovan Ustioza. Emmanuel Russia-User is P11, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. Jovan Ustioza is P4, 0.5 seconds behind San Marcom. Mark Scott is P11, 0.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia-User. Emmanuel Russia-User is P11, 0.4 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. 20 minutes remaining in the session. David Forsyth on lap 6 is P6, 0.8 seconds behind John Astrup. Jovan Ustioza on lap 6 is P4, 0.5 seconds behind San Marcom. Attila Ksenia is P8, 0.4 seconds behind David Forsyth. Glenn Field is P11, 0.1 seconds behind Louis van Jaarsveld. Attila Ksenia is P7 on standards, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bohm. San Marcom is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Jovan Ustioza. Louis van Jaarsveld is P11, 0.1 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marcom is P4, 0.1 seconds behind Jovan Ustioza. Eric Bohm is P6, 0.1 seconds behind John Astrup. Jovan Ustioza is P4, 0.2 seconds behind San Marcom. David Kelsall is P8, 0.7 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Eric Bohm is P5, 0.2 seconds behind Jovan Ustioza. Jovan Ustioza on lap 7 is P4, 0.1 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Attila Ksenia is P6, 1.2 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Attila Ksenia entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P6. Glenn Field is P10 on standards, 2.0 seconds ahead of Louis van Jaarsveld. Attila Ksenia is P9, 1.2 seconds behind John Astrup. Eric Bohm is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Jovan Ustioza. Jovan Ustioza is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Mark Scott entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P14. Richard Ogden is P15. Mark Scott on lap 8 is P14. Jovan Ustiosen is P5, 1.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. David Kelsall is P7, 1.9 seconds behind David Forsyth. Eric Bohm is P4, 1.6 seconds behind San Marco. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 8 laps is P4. Jovan Ustiosen entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P5. Glenn Field is P10, 3.1 seconds ahead of Louis van Jaarsveld. 15 minutes remaining in the session. David Kelsall entering the pits after 9 laps is P7. David Kelsall is P7. Best lap is a 1:48.190. 0.536 off the fastest lap. Glenn Field on lap 8 is P10, 3.5 seconds ahead of Louis van Jaarsveld. Glenn Field entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P10. Jovan Ustiosen is P8. Glenn Field is P12 on standards. John Astrup is P5, 0.8 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Brian Patterson is P13. Eric Bohm is P6, 0.4 seconds behind John Astrup. John Astrup is P5, 0.6 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Ryan Skywalker entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P2. Ryan Skywalker is P2, 1.8 seconds ahead of San Marco. Glenn Field is P12. David Forsyth entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P4. David Forsyth is P4. John Astrup entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P6. John Astrup is P7, 1.4 seconds behind Attila Kseniai. Glenn Field is P12. John Astrup is P6. Louis van Jaarsveld entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P9. Emmanuel Rushiuser entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P11. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P11. Glenn Field is P12. Louis van Jaarsveld is P12 on standards. Brian Patterson is P13, 0.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Rushiuser. Emmanuel Rushiuser on lap 10 is P13, 0.1 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 11 laps on standards is P1. Rene Robertson is P1. Glenn Field on lap 10 is P10. San Marco entering the pits after 11 laps on standards is P2. San Marco is P2. Attila Ksenia is P2, 0.1 seconds behind Eric Bohm. David Kelsall is P9, 0.9 seconds behind David Forsyth. Mark Scott is P12 on standards. Eric Bohm is P2, 0.4 seconds behind Attila Ksenia. Best lap is a 1:47.654. 0.499 of the fastest lap. David Kelsall is P9, 0.6 seconds behind David Forsyth. Rene Robertson is P4, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Ten minutes remaining in the session. David Kelsall is P9, 0.6 seconds behind David Forsyth. San Marco from Zimbabwe is P4 battling Rene Robertson. John Astrup is P7, 1.9 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Rene Robertson on lap 12 is P3, 0.7 seconds ahead of San Marco. Richard Ogden is P15. Emmanuel Richauser is P12, 1.0 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson on lap 12 is P3, 1.2 seconds ahead of San Marco. Emmanuel Richauser is P12, 1.1 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. David Forsyth is P8, 0.4 seconds behind John Astrup. David Kelsall is P9, 0.2 seconds behind John Astrup. John Astrup is P8, 0.3 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. Richard Ogden is P14. John Astrup is P9, 0.5 seconds behind David Kelsall. Best lap is a 1:49.899. 2.744 of the fastest lap. David Kelsall is P8, 0.3 seconds ahead of John Astrup. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. David Forsyth is P8, 0.1 seconds behind David Kelsall. David Kelsall is P7, 0.4 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Mark Scott entering the pits after 6 laps on standards is P13. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. David Forsyth on lap 14 is P8, 1.4 seconds behind David Kelsall. Eric Bone is P3, 0.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Richard Ogden is P14. David Kelsall is P7, 2.4 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Eric Bone from Germany is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Rene Robertson is P2, 1.0 seconds ahead of Eric Bone. Brian Patterson is P12. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P13. Richard Ogden is P13. Glenn Field is P10. Richard Ogden is P13. David Kelsall is P7, 1.2 seconds behind Jogan Ustioza. Rene Robertson is P2, 1.5 seconds ahead of Eric Bone. Best lap is a 1:47.227. 0.072 of the fastest lap. Richard Ogden is P13. Rene Robertson is P2, 1.5 seconds ahead of Eric Bone. Jovan Ustjorsen is P6, 1.0 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. Brian Patterson is P12, 3.9 seconds behind Louis van Jaarsveld. Jovan Ustjorsen is P6, 1.1 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. Best lap is a 1:48.881. 1.726 off the fastest lap. Eric Bohm is P3, 2.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Jovan Ustjorsen is P6, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. David Forsyth is P8. Best lap is a 1:48.821. 1.666 off the fastest lap. Jovan Ustjorsen is P6 on standards, 0.7 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. Louis van Jaarsveld is P11, 3.1 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. David Kelsall is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorsen. Jovan Ustjorsen is P7 on standards battling David Kelsall. John Astrup is P9, 0.9 seconds ahead of Glenn Field. Jovan Ustjorsen is P7, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Glenn Field is P10, 0.4 seconds behind John Astrup. Jovan Ustjorsen is P7, 0.4 seconds behind David Kelsall. Glenn Field is P10, 0.1 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Attila Ksenia is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Attila Ksenia finished P1. Rene Robertson finished P2. Eric Bohm finished P3. Richard Ogden finished P13. Sam Markham finished P4. Ryan Skywalker from South Africa finished P5. David Kelsall finished P6. Jovan Ustjorsen finished P7. David Forsyth finished P8. Glenn Field finished P10. John Astrup finished P9. Louis van Jaarsveld is P11. Louis van Jaarsveld finished P11. Brian Patterson finished P12. David Kelsall finished P6. Rene Robertson finished P2. Rene Robertson finished P2.